All right, thank you everyone for hopping on to today's exciting webinar about NativeEdge. Appreciate you guys for showing some interest. I'm Shelby and I'm part of the partner management team for Dell at CDW. Just going to do a quick little introduction to everyone today. We have Jessica Pettigrew, the BDM at for NativeEdge team at Dell, and Rob McLaughlin, the principal systems engineer with Dell's Edge practice, both joining us from Dell. Today, they'll highlight some key benefits, some real-world use cases, and a demo to show how NativeEdge can accelerate your edge strategy. And we'll also be joined by KJ Burke, our hybrid infrastructure field CTO at CDW, to discuss our services closer to the end of the presentation. But yeah, the floor is yours, guys. You can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shelby. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Just will give you a bit of a background of who I am. I'll pass it to Rob and then we'll get started. So Jess Pettigrew, as Shelby mentioned, I am a NativeEdge BDM covering all of Canada and all of the Northeast. I primarily have a background in software. Before coming over to the NativeEdge team here at Dell, I was doing VMware for 5.5 years, really focused not just in the data center, but really licensing. And now it feels strange to not be part of that group anymore. And we're obviously going to talk about some use cases with potentially removing VMware at the edge as well, if you are that type of customer. But we will really go through the ins and outs of this platform today. And I'll pass it to Rob.
Thanks, Jess. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone that's on. Rob McLaughlin here. I'm a principal systems engineer with the Edge practice at Dell Technologies. I've been working on the Edge side of things for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was supporting all things SAP across all of North America. I've been at Dell Technologies for 20 years now, and I'm based in the New York City metropolitan area. Thanks for joining.
KJ, did you want to introduce yourself, or maybe everybody knows?
I can just do it real quick. So KJ Burke, Field CTO for Hybrid Infrastructure. Really excited about this. I think especially like retail and oil and gas and all of these different verticals are really trying to act on their data at the edge. So I think I'm really excited to hear more about the solution, and I really like the approach that Dell's taking is making it a platform, making it easy to consume. And I know you'll cover all of that, but that's what I think is really exciting about this from my perspective. But thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you. All right. So again, I know this is a webinar format, but feel free to write any questions in the chat. We will be checking those periodically. We love questions of anything that we can double click on. So where did this NativeEdge platform come from? Now, if you're used to Dell, when I came over to the Dell NativeEdge group, I was scratching my head a little bit of what is Dell trying to accomplish here, and what are we really serving up for our customers besides another solution? Like, how are we helping customers scale out their edge environment and being able to do it for the future? And when I say the future, I don't know about you, but the last 2 years of the AI, ups and downs and all the changes, I mean, how do we build out a platform that can keep up with the AI? And most of the time we talk to customers weekly, about 15 to 18 customers weekly. The technology is ready. We have all the tools and all the things that we can serve up to you. But typically companies are just not ready yet to deploy AI models to the edge. And so how do we get that to a place for you to be able to scale that out and make it relevant even in 2 years' time, right? Anything we deploy today could be older in 2 to 3 years. So we look at some of our customers' main challenges that we're seeing is the hardware that's already outside in the edge is not potentially the newest hardware. So we see a lot of diverse hardware out there. And when I say diverse, different operating systems, different app versions, how do we manage those endpoints and then introduce potentially new ones when we do tech refreshes? We also don't necessarily have local IT support. I mean, you have CDW as a partner, but also how do we support all those different locations quickly and efficiently, as well as with price in mind? How do we keep it affordable for you? Another concern is because it's not necessarily behind a data center or behind a closet with a key, how do we ensure that it's secure and completely locked down? And then one that just really popped up this year that we're seeing a lot is VMware at the edge. I would say for the first 6 months, I wasn't really seeing that, and that was last year. But due to the cost increases with VMware licensing, how do we offer up something different for our customers at a more affordable rate? So we're not really seeing customers move away from VMware in the data center exactly, but the edge, of course, we're seeing alternative measures taking place. Now, I don't know everyone's vertical on this call, but verticals that are really taking advantage of this platform is specifically manufacturing. We're seeing a lot of new and legacy applications being deployed in manufacturing on top of NativeEdge. Of course, we're seeing retail. I would say we're more seeing retail back of store. So when you are doing a tech refresh and you have servers out there, what are they running on? How do you manage those servers? How do you manage those set of applications in your retail location? And then I would say as a third one, I know there's 4 on this slide, but we're seeing cities. We are seeing transportation. And again, it's a mix of new applications because we're seeing a lot of companies start to have KPIs around how many AI initiatives do they need to do? How many AI projects do they need to initiate? And then also, like I mentioned in the challenge, how do we maintain those legacy applications that are already out there? So we're seeing a bit of both. Not everybody is getting on board or even ready to deploy AI applications at the edge. But again, we're hoping to set customers up for a platform that you can potentially do both in the future. Now, what is this platform I'm talking about? Well, Dell NativeEdge is our software platform. It's been around for only about 2 years now, and it is falling under the Dell Automation Platform. Now, the Dell Automation Platform was announced this year at Dell World. This was just in May. And this Dell Automation Platform, which we're not going to talk about the whole platform today, but it's an overarching platform that is potentially, and it will, do it all. So if you do have VMware or data center, it will have a data center outcome. It's going to have a Dell private cloud outcome that you can procure Red Hat, Azure, Nutanix, and then it also has the Dell NativeEdge outcome, which is going to manage all of your edge estate. So it's really an end-to-end solution that's going to help the business scale, but have it under one simple umbrella. Now, you don't need to have any of the outcomes to be able to run NativeEdge. It's just an option under this umbrella. Now, it's really going to help you simplify those deployments and those like the endpoints that are outside. So it's really doing 2 things: infrastructure management and application orchestration. And when I say application orchestration, how are we serving up applications on the hardware outside of the data center? Because we can't necessarily use the same tools that we're utilizing at the data center and just simply apply it to those edge endpoints. We're really doing this in a zero touch and zero trust in mind way. Now, Rob, if you can dig a little deeper on how NativeEdge OS comes into play, that would be great.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks, Jess. So let's dig in. So Dell NativeEdge, as Jess said, is our edge operations software platform. Above everything, right? If you're rolling out Dell NativeEdge, first and foremost, what's presented to you is called the Dell NativeEdge Orchestrator. The orchestrator is a centralized dashboard that allows you full command and control to your complete edge estate. In Dell speak, the edge estate is going to be the infrastructure or endpoints that are out there serving up your applications. And of course, under that same orchestrator dashboard, the ability to manage and deploy those applications across those endpoints. So as Jess said in the previous slide, whatever vertical you're in, if you're in digital cities or retail or manufacturing, it's typical that you have multiple edge locations, multiple x86 compute-based endpoints out there. And across those compute-based endpoints, you have multiple applications that have been deployed over many, many years, right? Edge is not new, right? It's just kind of like a new term. It's been out there for many, many years. And as Jess stated before, right? Yeah, there's old school applications running out there, but there's all types of transformation projects that these verticals and your verticals are also looking to transform into over the next year or 2 years, right? All right, so here's the thing. We start with Dell NativeEdge Orchestrator. That's that centralized dashboard. We do two things there, and you see it on the slide. We do infrastructure management and application orchestration under that single dashboard. From an infrastructure management side of things, let's hit on that real quick. You see, of course, it's Dell. We're showing you some little boxes on the bottom left corner of the screen. But everything that we do, whether it be client devices, workstations, towers, or all the way up to servers that would be suitable for a data center, we build this equipment with Edge in mind. So these are not bare metal boxes from our factory. We have a specialized portion of our manufacturing side that actually creates these systems with an understanding that they're going to be created for native edge. So whether it be a client device, a tower, or a PowerEdge based server in our factory, we do three things, and it's all about enabling that zero touch onboarding and that zero trust security that Jess mentioned before. So let's hit on those three things. First, any port or peripheral that's available on the platform. So if it's a PowerEdge server or a little tiny Optiplex node, think USB, serial ports, peripheral ports, all those ports will be locked down in our factory, right? Second thing that we do is we look at the underlying platform, the construct of the box, what type of memory, what type of CPU, what type of drives are in it. And based on that unique signature of the platform, we generate what's called a cryptographic key. We burn that cryptographic key to the TPM of the box, and we seal that TPM down. That's the unique identifier of that platform, kind of like a MAC address, or for Dell people, kind of like a service tag, right? But it's burned on the TPM of the box, sealed down, good to go. Third thing that we do in our factory is we load what's called the Dell NativeEdge factory operating system directly on the box. Depending on the type of box really determines what type of OS is running on it, but it's all running what we call the Dell NativeEdge factory operating system. All right, so all's well and good. You're in retail, we're in manufacturing. You have 10 sites. You bought a specific client device that you're going to be rolling out to your remote locations. From our factory, we do those three things. We ship it out directly to those remote locations. Someone without skilled hands, so we don't need a technical person or an IT person or a VM or systems admin out there. Someone without skilled hands simply needs to plug that box in, power it on, and connect it to a network, and then that system will onboard itself. And basically behind the scenes, what's happening is that box is broadcasting his cryptographic key that's written on that TPM. The NativeEdge orchestrator that's running up above. Remember, I told you that the centralized dashboard, he has a rendezvous service running on it. That rendezvous service sees that system looking to onboard itself, sees the cryptographic key, that identifier. All right, looks great. We have a digital representation of that key that's already been pulled into the rendezvous service called a voucher. We do a key value pair comparison, ensure that that system and his key is in fact destined for your environment. All right, all is well and good. We compare them. That voucher, let's onboard this box, right? So onboarding, what we do is we say, all right, before we onboard it, let's make sure that the system hasn't been tampered with. And we use that same unique construct, that same cryptographic key to verify that all the building blocks that are in the physical box, in fact, generate that same key. And once that key has been validated, we know, okay, box is good to go. We're not going to introduce anything that's been tampered with into your environment. Let's load the Dell NativeEdge runtime operating system on that box. So that happened. Guy plugged it in. I made it sound longer than it really is. Someone plugged it in, powered it on, it onboarded itself. We loaded the Dell NativeEdge OS on top of the platform. Now, what's cool about the Dell NativeEdge OS, it is a hypervisor unto itself. So you take that little desktop or that tower, we've loaded Dell NativeEdge OS. It's a hypervisor capable of running VMs and containers on the same platform. So at your remote location, if you had multiple applications that you were serving up today with multiple platforms, multiple x86 devices, as an example, you can in fact take those applications, pull them into the NativeEdge catalog, and then deploy them down to that endpoint that we've just onboarded. We will encapsulate every one of those applications into their own VMs and run them on top of that platform, right? So that NativeEdge endpoint that's out there, we've onboarded it. We also provide full lifecycle management of that platform as well. So think stuff like firmware updates, OS updates, NativeEdge software updates, any patches, any maintenance will be provided directly into that NativeEdge console, and you have the ability to either automatically or manually apply that firmware, apply that patch down to that endpoint over the full life cycle of that box that's sitting at that remote location. And it's all done remotely, right? You don't need to send someone out there, plug a USB drive or a jump drive into the box and update it. It's happening through the Dell NativeEdge orchestrator. Let's switch over to that left side of the slide, right? The application orchestration piece, because that's where we provide the ability to take all of your applications that are relevant to your edge estate and pull them into that centralized catalog. So if you had a point of sale application, if you had an inferencing application or a computer vision application that were out at your remote location, you could pull all those applications into that centralized catalog. And then you also have the ability of deploying either manually or automatically those applications down to those endpoints, right? So stuff like lifecycle management, OS updates, application updates is also provided in addition to doing the application deployment, all provided under that centralized NativeEdge orchestrator dashboard. Okay, make sense? Good.
Perfect. Now, just to dig a little bit deeper on the actual architecture of what we are talking about, if you can dig even more deeper, Rob, that would be great.
Yeah, and guys, please feel free if you have questions and you're not shy. I thought you fixed the mouse. If you have questions and you're not shy, please feel free to jump in or ask questions in the chat. That's cool too. All right, so the onboarding happens at a device level. So in my example before, you take a device, you plug it in, power it on, it comes on board. We automatically build the data stores on that platform automatically. So that little server comes on board. He has 3 terabytes of storage in him. NativeEdge will automatically, as part of the OS deployment, will automatically look at the contents of that box and see that there's 3 terabytes sitting in it, and it will automatically create that data store for you. That's at a single node level. If we move to the middle, like smack in the middle of the slide, I'm showing you 3 nodes. You could take those endpoints. So say you had 3 nodes that you were at a remote destination, you onboarded all 3 nodes. You could take those 3 nodes and you could build a cluster across those 3 nodes within NativeEdge also. That provides full HA capability now to your remote edge location. So my example of having 5 applications, you take those 5 applications, now you can push them down to that 3-node cluster. Those 5 applications will be spread and they could be prioritized based on your guidelines. Those 5 applications will be put in their own VMs and placed across that 3-node cluster. Now you're fully protected. We actually create a shared data store across those 3 nodes as well. We don't require external storage to do this. This is truly a hyper-converged construct. So you have those 5 VMs running across those 3 nodes. Now, loss of any physical node in that cluster will result in the automatic failover of those applications running on top of the VMs to the surviving nodes. Same thing happens on the storage side. We fully protect you via storage-based redundancy with that shared data store across that cluster as well. Stuff that you would see in a data center is also available to you out at your edge location now. So VM level snapshots, APIs to do backup integration. Anything you do in NativeEdge Orchestrator through the GUI is also available as an API to you. And if I move over to the far right, hey, Rob, all is great, but what if I have existing equipment that's out there today? Do I need to refresh everything with Dell NativeEdge hardware? That's definitely not the case. So we also provide the option of bringing existing equipment into the Dell NativeEdge framework as well, whether that be bare metal boxes or existing equipment that's leveraging another hypervisor that could be brought into the environment. And if you have existing VMware environments running out there, we can actually pull those VMware environments directly into NativeEdge, surface that VMware environment into NativeEdge, and we have the ability to command and control not only NativeEdge VMs that we've deployed to that environment, but we could also do control and manage VMware-based environments and Kubernetes-based environments inside NativeEdge as well. So we hit on single node, we hit on multi-node clusters, we hit on the ability to surface VMware environments, Kubernetes environments, and also leverage existing assets out there into the NativeEdge umbrella. The whole point being the orchestrator can be your single point of control to all of your applications that you're deploying out there across your complete edge estate. Okay. Yes, anything on your end that I didn't hit on here?
Yeah. So just to break it down a little simpler, NativeEdge Orchestrator will be run in your data center or in our cloud. So we can serve it up to you as a SaaS offering. You can utilize your partner, CDW, to offer it as a managed service for you,
Yep.
or you can go ahead and run this on-prem and have your full environment. Now, something very unique about the licensing model for this is it is one platform per customer. So similar to some of our competitors, you'll have one vCenter, let's say, per network or per location or per country. It is not necessary. You will not need to pay for more, let's say, orchestrators or more platforms. It's one per company. You can have as many orchestrators if you want. So we'll break it down a little bit. We have a large grocery chain here in Canada. They have them all across Canada, all different provinces. They basically have an orchestrator in each province with it all tagged up to say, all right, here's our Alberta, here's the 60 stores in Alberta, here's our Ontario location that has 200 stores, and here's our Quebec region that has, 300 stores. So they can break it down. It's not going to cost them more to do this. It is really an overarching for that one customer. And sometimes this can be overwhelming for customers where they're like, well, this seems very intense. This seems like a lot. We might only use the deployment piece, or we might only use the security piece. We're not going to use all the capabilities and functions. It's too much for our specific use case. This platform also grows with you. So there's not a large upfront cost to run NativeEdge. It really scales with you. We have some customers that only have 2 devices in their edge environment, which seems crazy to me, but because the price point is affordable, they can really start to scale this out over the years, but they can start with 1 device or 2 devices to then get where they need to be in 3 years time. Another point is sometimes we're only starting with 1 application or 1 legacy application. Rob mentioned that top bar here. Typically, we want to, consolidate some of your edge hardware and put it on 1 box. And that's really where the blueprint capabilities come into play. But sometimes, again, it's only that 1 use case until they prove it out, vet it out in their environment to see if this is something that could scale across their edge estate. Now, Rob, I don't know if you have your environment prepped and ready to go.
I do.
I want to touch on one thing before we show that. Today, we have these endpoints. And similar to what Rob was saying, you will be able to order any of these endpoints with the NativeEdge OS pre-installed at factory. And you'll take advantage of that security functionality, the hardened OS, and all the NativeEdge goodness. But starting next week, we are launching Brownfield, which is going to hit non-Dell hardware or existing, let's say, a Brownfield Dell hardware to loop into the NativeEdge OS. There's some caveats. It does need to be x86 based, so it can't be yet ARM processors or other devices, but there'll be a simple, you do need to wipe the machine, you do need to put Ubuntu OS on the box and do that lift. So for some customers, that brownfield offering is a little bit of a heavy lift. So we do have clients that are just waiting to phase that technology out to make space for NativeEdge. Hopefully I bought you some time, Rob, to get your environment up and running.
Yep, I
And
have it.
if you can showcase, I think, again, the platform that Rob is going to share with you, it's going to look slightly different next week. We have a massive launch of the Dell Automation platform. And so there'll be a different heading. It will really look the same, but obviously there's going to be some new functionalities that we're serving up to you next week.
All right, good to go. You have more to say
No,
or no?
I'm just
Good.
going to keep going.
All right. So, all right. So when you first log in, what I have here in front of you, it's the Dell NativeEdge Orchestrator. So when you first log in, this first screen that we see here is kind of like the at-a-glance dashboard. You have full visibility of your complete edge estate. This is my little lab. So in my little lab, I have 7 endpoints. So those are 7 x86 based compute devices. Across those 7 endpoints, for now, we've deployed 2 virtual machines. And then when you deploy an application or a container to an endpoint, those are called deployments. So that's kind of like you run a job to deploy an application to an endpoint. It creates what's called a deployment. I like to call it kind of like a job log. Within this dashboard, you could see not only endpoints, VMs, and deployments, but you could also see all the events that have happened across your complete edge estate, as well as a summary of the alerts and informational based logs that have happened across your edge estate over a 24-hour window. Now, remember before I talked about the endpoints. In my environment, I have about 8 endpoints that are up and running. They're currently all online. When you have a brand new environment that you're looking to onboard, what you would see is as soon as you pull what we call, remember I said about that digital representation of the key is a voucher. As soon as you pull a voucher into NativeEdge Orchestrator, you will see that environment sitting out here with a status of waiting to onboard. And basically what that means is, hey, Dell is manufacturing that box as we speak, but they've already sent you a notification to your orchestrator that this box is in progress. As soon as that voucher is known by the orchestrator, you'll see it in your orchestrator. And again, it will be with the status of waiting to onboard. Now, within the endpoints tab here, this is a full view of all of your endpoints. You have the ability to go ahead and get into any of those physical endpoints themselves. You could see the onboard MAC address of the box. You can actually see the full IP address of the box, and you could see the service tag of the box. In addition to that, you could see, hey, do I have any VMs running on them? Do I have any containers on that box? You could also get full visibility of the metrics. I'm showing you typical stuff here, CPU, memory, disk, and network. If I hit the custom tab, there's about 1,200 other metrics that you could also report on. You have full network capability. The physical network is displayed here. And then on top of the physical network, because keep in mind, we're deploying either VMs or containers, you create the virtual network segments. And on top of these virtual network segments, you could go ahead and hit add, and you have the ability to create an air-gapped network, a NAT-based network, or a bridge-based network. And I'll hit on air-gapped real quick because that's super important for customers that are looking to have what I would consider an air-gapped or a gray zone environment where maybe your infrastructure is running behind a VLAN that's not necessarily, you don't necessarily want it to be broadcast out to the internet. That's what an air-gapped is for. And a bridge really is just bridging between the virtual network and the physical Ethernet port that's on the box itself, right? So hit on network. You also have full visibility to the hardware that's in the platform, from a physical compute level, from a storage level, and from a peripheral level. And remember in the very beginning, I'm sure you don't remember at this point, but I told you that we locked down all the ports and peripherals on the box. This is also where you would enable those ports. So if you needed a specific serial port to be enabled, you could actually click on that serial port. It highlights it here, and you could pass it through to the applications that require it. All the other ports on this little gateway here would remain locked down. So as this environment's sitting out there in the wild, if someone had the ability to walk up to the box and try to plug something into the USB port, it would in fact not respond. So you're fully protected. The box is locked down. Yeah, you might have something plugged into that serial port, but if you did unplug it and try to plug something in, that VM that's actually responding to that serial port would not recognize it, and it also would not respond. Okay. Logs are also available for you here as well, and you download them directly from the box, and then that's how you report on them. You don't have any physical remote shell capability into the physical box itself. We've locked this box down such that it's really treated as an appliance that's running out there in your environment. I'll hit on blueprints really quick because that's really where your applications are pulled in. You can see here, I have two different types of blueprints. I have a virtual machine blueprint and I have a service blueprint. A virtual machine blueprint is kind of an image of your existing application. So if you had an application that was running on VMware, you could take that VMDK and pull it directly into this catalog. And once it's pulled into this catalog, you could simply click on that application, hit the deploy button. You choose which endpoint or endpoints you'd like to deploy that application to. Go ahead and click next. Define the vCPU, the data store where it's going to, and the amount of memory and the amount of storage. You hit next, and that application will be deployed across your complete edge estate with a single click of the button. That's on a VM-based image. It could be an ISO, a QCOW2, a VHD, a RAW format file. If you have an existing deployment that you're doing manually today, think NativeEdge allows me to pull that into this catalog, and now I could deploy that application, that VM, down to that edge location or edge locations with a single click of the button. And as I said before during the presentation, anything I'm doing here is also can also be driven via API. So if you don't like Dell Blue and you want to leverage some other engine to go ahead and drive it, you can go ahead and use an API from your externalized job or your externalized tool to do that as well. I'll hit on this service blueprint really quick. Out of the gate, in our global catalog, in Dell's global catalog, we've already created for many of the verticals, custom blueprints that are specific to the vendors that I would consider the go-to off-the-shelf vendors in that vertical. So what a custom blueprint is, it's similar to a recipe card or an Ansible playbook or a Terraform-based capability where we have provided the ingredients of what it means to deploy, for example, PTC Kepware. That could involve creating a VM, installing a specific OS, pulling that OS from an artifact repository, installing an application that maybe is being sourced via PTC, right? So you don't necessarily even have to store them on-prem. Deploying that application, configuring the network. Maybe you need internal network construct, and you also need the ability to talk to the outside world. That would be defined in the blueprint. And then maybe you need external connectivity to a database service. That all is part of that blueprint. When you hit this button and hit deploy, what happens behind the scenes, you go ahead and hit deployment targets, hit next, you define the configuration because this is a little bit more complex. You're doing OS installs, you're doing app installs, you need secrets and passwords. You define all of that capability here, hit next, and it will generate a dynamic recipe for deploying this blueprint down to that endpoint, and it will do all the automation to kind of tie it all up and wrap it in a bow, right? So that's custom blueprints. And then there's 4 other tabs here. I don't know if we necessarily have time to go through them all today, but you could see within the endpoints tab, the capability of not only going into the endpoint, but also you can go ahead and upgrade the endpoint, shut down the endpoint, reset the endpoint. You're getting full command and control through that centralized dashboard, for both infra and your applications that are out there across your edge estate.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions on what Rob shared? Keep in mind, it's typically a 45-minute demo squished into 10 minutes. But if you've seen something, obviously reach out to CDW if you want a tailored demo specifically to you, and we can really get into the weeds of it, how we communicate with VMware, how we would migrate off VMware, specific blueprints. We have about, I know he just touched on it, but we have some of the industry's leading ISVs on the NativeEdge catalog that most likely some of you are already using some of these software platforms that are already pre-blueprinted on the NativeEdge Global catalog. I know, KJ, you had a couple things also that you wanted to share. If this is a good time, we can pass it to you.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate it, Jessica and Rob. And customers are on the line. Really appreciate you guys' time. From my perspective, most of my career I spent on the customer side. And so looking at innovation and how you're going about innovation. For me, there's a couple of things. One is compelling events. So, whether it's VMware as a compelling event, whether it's your business trying to leverage things like computer vision or AI tooling at the edge, those are things that are a little bit out of your control. And so, one of the challenges IT has is that we've kind of controlled what that innovation path looks like for our organizations we work for. But now we've got external forces that are really forcing us to change the way we do things. And so I think when you look at the ability to have that air gap, when you look at the ability to have a platform, when you look at the ability to have like a centralized management console, there's some aspects of the NativeEdge platform that I really, really like, and I think our customers can get a lot of benefit from. So I mean, think about the kind of pressure that you're going to be under to deploy AI tools and computer vision and potentially chatbots, potentially safety and health monitoring systems,
Yep.
et cetera, kind of at the edge. And then try to look at, well, how as an IT organization do we support that? So I think there's some really, really, good things that we covered today. From a CDW perspective, happy to help with some of those OT conversations. We were just talking about it before the presentation. IT and OT and bringing those teams together, knowing that you have an IT platform that can better support your OT users and systems is great. But where CDW can sometimes help is to bring those teams together and have some of those conversations. Also help with sizing and design. So again, you're looking at what's the right size, what's the right approach, how do we start small, how do we plan to grow? Again, CDW can come in and help with that. And there's a lot of Dell services that we do delivery for. So again, especially when you're dealing with things like retail, especially when you're dealing with the number of locations that you have to support. CDW as a partner to help with those deployments and those services. And then the other thing that I wasn't expecting to hear as much about, but I think is really important, is that resiliency. I think a lot of times we struggle with building resiliency at the edge. And when you think about being able to enable those snapshots, being able to enable the backup and integrate with your backup plans, being able to have resiliency without having to have huge clusters of services at the edge. So, I mean, so those are the things that sort of jump out to me. And so I think as we're trying to figure out how do we work with our OT teams, how do we enable these IoT services, how do we take the sensor data, how do we curate that data, how do we securely connect into POS systems, like all of that seems to be a pretty good use case here. So feel free to reach out to the CDW team, reach out to your Dell reps. Happy to engage on these conversations.
Nice job.
Awesome. And was that a question?
Nope.
That was just you, Rob, talking. Since we have a couple minutes and I see some folks on the line, and KJ, you wrapped it up really nicely, but I would like to talk about just quickly, one of our first use cases in Canada was a greenhouse. They're pretty famous with Dell, and they came to us to say, hey, we have an issue understanding our IoT environment. We are IT folks. We don't really get all these sensors and the data, and we don't understand that they're secure. So the first use case was really just to have IT have visibility of their IoT devices. And through the ISV program that we have and one of our blueprints called Litmus, we were able to partner with Litmus to provide a POC for this customer. And this was a free 30-day POC to vet, is this actually going to work? And we used one of those tiny gateways that Rob talked about. We deployed NativeEdge and then deployed Litmus on top of NativeEdge. And within 7 minutes of connecting this NativeEdge gateway, sorry, I missed the punch. We asked him, how many IoT devices do you think you have? Roughly. It's one location. How many do you have? He's like, yeah, I counted. There's 30. Like, okay, perfect. 30. So we deployed, again, Litmus, and within 7 minutes, we saw there was 1,000. I kid you not, 1,000 IoT devices. And my job as a salesperson was never easier because I just looked at him like, well, I gave you visibility. You can see everything now. You can see more than you probably want to see. So over the next 6 months after that deal closed, he has been learning a lot about his IoT devices and some of the data that he can learn from that from this software platform. So relatively easy use case, relatively easy challenge that he had, and a massive ROI back to him really quick. So they don't always need to be complicated. They don't always need to be AI focused. Sometimes it can just be understanding what's already in your building and building on it. And he is very new to this space. And I feel like a lot of IT folks can be very new to this space. So it's an easy way to get comfortable and start to learn. And I can send that use case out after this call as well if you want to read more on it.
That's a good example. I got myself in trouble because we were talking to one of the airports and they said, guess how many IoT and OT devices we have. I said, probably 5,000 or 6,000, and I was only, 75 to 80,000 off. So yeah, there's, I think it does become really surprising, especially when you start to look at facilities. You look at like parking, and it's like there's a sensor for every 4 parking spots, and you have hundreds of parking spots, and so yeah, it compounds pretty quickly, and it ties in so important to how organizations want to innovate. How they want to provide better customer experiences. They want to provide better traffic patterns. They want to, like, whatever that happens to be, being able to bring that physical and that physical world and that data together. And I really liked, just kind of some things you touched on. I thought was really important is we find challenges for especially like ITOT and IoT to have secure ways to share data, to do observability, to create secure remote access. And so being able to touch on the idea of being able to have air gaps solutions, being able to provide access into that, still be able to deploy to those systems, through the management interface, like those are solving some of those really hard to solve challenges. So.
Exactly. All right. So we'll share the presentation with the CDW team here. Feel free to reach out to CDW. We're happy to get engaged. Again, we're hand in hand with them. So most likely you'll see us again if you want to learn more. And thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Thanks to our customers
Bye-bye.
for being on the line. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everyone.